In 2003, Amarjit Chauhan, a successful businessman, lived in London with his family. His home was full of life. His wife Nancy, their two young children, and his mother-in-law all lived together. Inkar Verma NY's younger brother was eagerly waiting to celebrate the birth of his nephew Rendra. But one day Inkar tried to reach Nancy, and when he couldn't get in touch with her, he began to feel uneasy. His worry deepened when he arrived at his sister's house to find that not only was Nancy missing, but so was the rest of her family. It seemed like they had vanished without a trace a few years before this strange incident. Amarjit Chauhan had moved from India to Britain. He worked tirelessly to build his business, an import-export company named Seba Freight. Located near Heathrow Airport, his hard work paid off and the business became quite successful. During his time in London, Amarjit met Nancy, a woman from Punjab, India, and married her after the wedding. Nancy moved to London to live with her husband in 2003. NY's second child, Rendra, was only 2 months old to help her daughter. NY's mother, Sharanjit Kaur, came to London from India and stayed with the family for a few months on February 14th. 2003, Nancy called her brother, Inkar Verma, who lived in New Zealand. Despite the distance, they often stayed in touch. But this time, NY's voice sounded scared when Onar asked her what was wrong. Nancy told him, "Amarjit, my husband went to the office yesterday, but he hasn't come back since I have tried calling him, but his phone is off." Nancy later called Amarjit's company and was told that he had gone to the Netherlands for an urgent business meeting. But this news felt strange to Nancy. She had never heard of any new business deals or plans for a trip to the Netherlands. What confused her more was that Amarjit had recently applied for his residency permit in London, so his passport was with the British government. How could he have traveled without it? Nancy couldn't understand what was going on. While Nancy was already worried, she suddenly received a voice message from her husband, Amarjit. In the message, Amarjit said, "Don't worry, I had to leave Britain for some urgent work. I'll be back soon." But when Nancy heard the message, her concern grew. It was the first time Amarjit had ever sent her a voice message in English. He always spoke to her in Punjabi. This sudden change, his trip to the Netherlands, in the English message felt odd to Nancy. She shared everything with her brother, Inkar Verma, the next day on February 15th. Inkar called Nancy again to check if Amarjit had come back, but this time NY's phone was switched off. He tried calling multiple times but got no answer on Car. Now extremely worried, reached out to his friends in London, telling them that even Nancy wasn't answering her phone. His friends quickly went to Amarjit's company to get more information. When they arrived, they were shocked to learn that Amarjit had sold the company. They were also told that a letter had been sent out announcing the sale and that the new owner would take over the letter. Mentioned that Amarjit and his family were leaving the UK to return to India. Inkar couldn't believe it. His brother-in-law was missing. Nancy wasn't answering, and now he found out the company had been sold, and they were moving back to India. What seemed even stranger was that the letter about the sale was typed on a computer. Amarjit had always handled such matters in person, so this was completely unusual. His longtime colleagues were also shocked, feeling that something was wrong. Inkar decided to file a police report, and the authorities began their investigation. The first place the police visited was Nancy and Amarjit Chauhan's house, but they found it locked next. They went to the company where they learned it had been sold just 2 days earlier. After checking the documents, they confirmed everything was in order. Amarjit's signature was on the papers, and the sale had been legally processed with all the paperwork in place. The police suggested to Inkar that perhaps Amarjit and his family had gone to India as the house was locked, and the letter about selling the company mentioned leaving for India. Worried, Inkar reached out to relatives in India to ask if anyone had seen Amarjit or Nancy, but no one had any information. This made Inkar realize they hadn't gone to India after all, which only increased his anxiety. The situation seemed even more confusing. Although Inkar had initially suspected something was wrong with the sale of the company, The police confirmed it had been legal. Days turned into weeks. 5 to 10 days passed, and still the police didn't take any further action. Frustrated with the slow progress, Encarta traveled from New Zealand to London. He reached out to influential contacts with good connections in the police department. Thanks to their pressure, the police finally began to take action, and the real investigation started. The police, along with Encar, arrived at Amarjit's house. They opened the door and immediately noticed food left on the dining table. As they moved inside, they saw children's clothes scattered around in the washroom. The washing machine was still running with clothes inside the fridge. Held food that seemed to have been there for a while. Important documents and money were lying around. And there were items that seemed strange to leave behind. Anyone leaving permanently would usually take these things on car. Also discovered that Chiranjit Kaur, who had recently come to stay with them, had a return ticket to India. All of this made the police suspicious if they were really leaving the country. Why would they leave behind essential belongings? The most puzzling things were the clothes in the washing machine and the food still on the table. Something didn't add up. Everything started to point to something more troubling. The police noticed a copy of the Guru Granth Sahib on the table, and this raised a red flag. On Karverma told the police that his mother-in-law, Sharjit Kaur, never separated from the Holy Scripture. She would never leave it behind. As the investigation deepened, Ankar grew more suspicious. Then a relative of Amarjit received a letter. The relative told the police that Amarjit always wrote his letters by hand, but this one was typed and signed. The letter claimed that Amarjit was in France and that the family was planning to return to India soon. It also said they had permanently left England. This only raised more questions. The family had never communicated like this before. Why would Amarjit suddenly send a typed letter on March 21st, 2003? The case was taken more seriously and handed over to Scotland Yard's Serious Crime Group. They, along with the CBI, went to India to check if the Chauhan family had arrived there. But after a thorough search, they found no trace of the family in April. The authorities were still unsure where the Chauhan family had gone. Then 2 fishermen discovered a decomposed body in the sea. They alerted the local police, and Scotland Yard's Serious Crime Unit was brought in to investigate. At first, they couldn't find any connection to the Chauhan case. But after more digging, they realized there was a link. The body was in bad condition and had been in the water for a long time. The police called Enar Verma to help identify it after looking at the body. Enkar confirmed it was his brother-in-law, Amarjit Chauhan. This discovery made Scotland Yard even more concerned. The investigation then shifted back to Amarjit's company, Seba. It turned out that Amarjit had sold the company just before he disappeared, and the money from the sale was now missing. Enkar told the police that neither his sister nor his brother-in-law had ever mentioned selling the company. Scotland Yard's team arrived at the company, now owned by Kenneth Reagan. Although the police had already looked into the matter, Scotland Yard decided to continue their investigation. Kenneth admitted that Amarjit had told him he wanted to leave everything behind and return to India, which was why he sold the company. He presented documents confirming the company was now his. As the investigation deepened, Scotland Yard discovered that, in July 2002, Kenneth had worked as a delivery boy for the same company Amarjit owned. This raised questions. How had someone who was once a delivery boy become the owner of the company in just 6 months? Digging further into Kenneth Reagan's background, they uncovered shocking details. He was once a notorious drug lord in the UK, involved in money laundering, fake passports, and human trafficking. He had led massive illegal operations, smuggling drugs and counterfeit documents across borders. His criminal activities had been on an enormous scale. In 1998, Kenneth Reagan was caught after a police chase, during which he injured several officers, facing serious charges and a long prison sentence. He made a deal with the police. He said, "You can arrest me, but I can give you billions of dollars worth of drugs, truckloads of cocaine, and other illegal goods." This deal led to an investigation by senior officers from the National Criminal Investigation Department. Kenneth was interrogated 15 times, during which he confessed to smuggling cocaine worth $100 million and other drugs he named as associates. And his cooperation led to a reduced sentence from 20 years to just 8. After serving 8 years, he was released and started working as a delivery boy for Cyber Company in 2002. Scotland Yard's team now realized something was very wrong with the case, but there wasn't much they could do at the time. The investigation continued, but progress was slow. Meanwhile, Ankar Verma, still searching for his missing family, grew more worried as the days passed and their whereabouts remained unknown. One day, a Scotland Yard officer received a call from a woman named Blender. She explained that the day before, when she visited her farmhouse, she saw 3 people hiding inside. They hid something there and then took it away, which made her nervous. She had stayed hidden, fearing they might harm her if they realized she was back. At first, she didn't want to get involved. But after learning the officer's contact details from a friend, she decided to report what she had seen. This phone call would soon connect all the dots in the case. But who were these 3 people? If you're still watching, don't forget to like the video and leave a heart in the comments. Thank you. The officer immediately contacted his team and rushed to Shiva Company to investigate. When they arrived, the owner was brought in for questioning. The investigation started in the office as they tried to piece together what had happened. Among the 3 people Blender had seen, one was Kenneth Reagan. The officer asked, "Tell us the truth." Kenneth responded, "What truth? You already know everything." After some pressure, he finally admitted to knowing the full story about Amarjit Chauhan and his family. To rewind a bit, Kenneth, who worked at the company, had learned from a reliable source that Amarjit planned to leave the UK and return to India with his family, especially after the birth of his youngest child. This information had come to Kenneth's attention. Kenneth Reagan had a dark past tangled in crime and illegal activities, but his life took a turn when he helped the police catch his old criminal friends involved in drugs and gangs. He knew too much about the world of crime to easily leave it behind. But now his former associates had become dangerous enemies with no trust left. He decided to live an honest life, though he couldn't forget the wealth and freedom he once enjoyed. Kenneth had been working as a delivery boy for some time, but he soon realized that he needed to change his life one day. He learned that Amarjit Chauhan was thinking about selling his company. This was the chance Kenneth had been waiting for, and he quickly began making a plan. He got his friends involved and told Amarjit, "I have a friend who's interested in buying your company. How about we set up a meeting? If everything goes well, the deal could be great for both of us later." He suggested they meet at his house, but Amarjit insisted on meeting at the office, thinking it would be more professional. Kenneth, however, managed to convince him to come to his place instead. On February 13th, they arrived at Kenneth's house. At first, they pretended to talk about the company sale, but after a while, the situation took a dark turn. Kenneth and his friends revealed their true intentions. They had kidnapped Amarjit. They told him he was now a hostage. They beat Amarjit, and to keep his wife Nancy from getting suspicious, they sent her a voicemail from his phone. They made sure to speak in English, which was strange since Amarjit always spoke Punjabi. Nancy immediately noticed something was wrong in the voicemail. She heard her husband's voice, but the language felt out of place. While they held him captive, they forced Amarjit to sign several company documents, including some shady papers related to blackmail. In the end, their plan reached its tragic conclusion. They killed Amarjit, placed his body in a car, and dumped it in the sea, hoping that it would never be found. On February 15, 2003, after killing Amarjit, Kenneth Reagan, along with his friends, went to Amarjit's house. Once inside, they brutally murdered Amarjit's wife Nancy, his son Deendra Drabindra, and NY's mother Charanjit Kaur. One by one, the bodies of these 5 victims were then placed in a car and driven to a 50-acre farm located on the outskirts of the city. This farm belonged to Belinda, a woman who was away in the city at the time. Kenneth saw this as the perfect opportunity to carry out the killings. However, when Belinda returned, she started noticing strange behavior from Kenneth, which made her suspicious, fearing that the truth might come out. Kenneth decided to act quickly and get rid of the bodies. He waited for another day, when Belinda would not be around, and with the help of his associates moved the bodies to the sea. But Belinda in secret witnessed everything and immediately contacted the police, giving them all the details. She knew the police then dug up Belinda's farm, where they found a few pieces of jewelry like earrings and bangles, which helped confirm the crime. The investigation eventually uncovered the truth. Kenneth Reen and his associates were caught, and Blender confirmed what she had seen. The bodies were found, with Amarjit Chauhan's body being recovered first. However, it took much longer to find the bodies of his wife Nancy and his mother-in-law Charanjit Kauri. In July, Nawai's body was discovered by a fisherman, and in November, Charanjit Kaur's body was found in 2004. The case went to court, and in 2005, Kenneth Reen was sentenced to life in prison in the end. No matter how deep the darkness of betrayal, the truth always finds a way to surface. Amarjit Chauhan may have been silenced, but justice will never rest. That's it for today's case. If you're new, please subscribe and leave a heart comment. Thank you.